Hey everyone, happy Monday, the last day of the month. And we are super excited that you're here with us. I'm Melissa Jake, CEO and founder of Rescue Event Planning. And to my left or your right, we have.
Jen Dalton with Brand Mirror. It's very nice to see you. I cannot believe we're almost at the end of February
I know, it's like the year's already flying by.
already. Crazy.
Already. And if you don't know who we are, what we do, we have a series called Rescue Your Brand. Why Rescue Your Brand? Well, my company is called Rescue Event Planning, and Jen does everything about branding. So we put our two brains together and created this series that we are here to help you rescue your brand in either events or in branding and how it can all go together. And today's topic is truly how this all goes together in 2022 on the top branding and event trends for businesses in 2022 and navigating the unpredictable waters that we have right now and changing in environments as COVID prayerfully is making its way out of our lives.
It's
So,
been fascinating, right? I mean, we've started to see events coming back and then they went away. Now they're coming back again.
yeah.
And making sure that you're meeting your audience where they are from a brand standpoint is huge. And really
Yes.
making sure you're using events to be consistent, right? Because if everything out there is chaotic, how do
Mhm.
you use your brand to be consistent, be reliable for your audience, and really be something they can depend on?
Absolutely. And I know it's trying. I've been there. I've lived through it, especially with events. But this is definitely the time where everyone is so hyped and amped up to get out, where your brand can really grow great visibility by having events. And we're going to talk about three different ways on that, how that can happen. And so when we think about events, we think about not what happened before COVID, right? We have to think past that. It's a totally different world. How do you get what we like to call butts and seats? How do you get people to your event? And so events are having this activating, exciting technologies brought in. Some people have VR, AR, or projecting mapping and how you can wow your guests, right? So it's now even having that type of energy and strategy on your how the event should be. In addition, some events are having some creative game activations, whether it's on your phone when you arrive, you're going into their app and you have a leaderboard who's most engaging. There's so many different things that people are doing with trade shows and even the foyer space when you come in. What does that look like? Is there still COVID protocol in there? Or some people are, but they're then using it for their benefit to then really play it into their brand, right? And so even chefs, they're having live, active cooking experiments right then and there. Your mac and cheese may have fire coming out of it, or I've seen a dish that had like cotton candy around it, and they lit it on fire, and then it kind of opened up to what the actual dessert was. So there's
That's
so many
crazy.
different ways.
I'm coming to all of your events.
Yes.
I don't know where you find the cotton candy people, but I'm there. And I think to your point, really considering people have been cooped up,
Yeah.
they want to make up for lost time, it almost feels like, right? So, how do you make sure your events are consistent? So, here's the other thing. Sometimes when we haven't done something for a long time, we overdo it right out of the gate. So, from a brand standpoint, think about what will be consistent for you for the year. What do you want to do, right? What do you have time to do? And if
Mhm.
it is a podcast, which maybe doesn't have video, so you can't see the cotton candy on fire, or if it is events where you decide, you know what, I want to launch a roundtable, whatever that is,
Yeah.
be consistent and make sure that the experience is on brand. So I love the examples you just gave. If your brand is innovative and fun, then yes, you might want to have cotton candy that lights on fire. Um, if it's more informal and approachable, do
Yeah.
you create comfy, cozy, warm settings where people get together and they discuss topics and they think and they share and they connect? But I think, Melissa, to your point, the number one thing that anyone running an event needs to think about is how do you give time for your attendees to really connect with each other?
Yes.
Because people want to participate, not just attend.
Attend.
And, we're making up for lost time. So really thinking about your event and how are people participating? How are they engaging? How are they connecting with each other? Because people are looking for that. They've missed out on that for a while now.
Absolutely. It's all about the experience. And so again, like Jen said, don't overdo it. You don't have to have everything falling from the sky and all different types of experiences. You can just do too much in one event. And plus it won't be worth the money because not everyone's going to be able to get to it and it's not going to make sense. You want them to walk away with, oh my gosh, Brand Mirror, I'm going to the events because they do X, Y, and Z and they made me feel this way. It's an experience that you want them to walk away with that energy to then spread that to other folks. But let's talk about hybrid events because though we're talking about in-person events, hybrid events are going to be here to stay. Do not sleep on your hybrid events. It's flexible. It gives you the flexibility for have all inclusivity because you can have people in person and you can have people online. And there's different ways you could do hybrid events. All your speakers could be in person, nice stage, and everyone's watching, or you can, split the two. But it provides an opportunity to gain experience. Things are being able to record. You can also have a virtual experience, which be able to bring people to in person. So let's say 2022, you may not have the finances yet as a business to say, I really want to do a big in-person event. Then you should still be doing your hybrid events. And maybe you have a smaller group and then you still have people online, but definitely making sure that the two feel like they're at one event. And having that experience throughout the event in person and virtually as well.
Absolutely. And one thing I would throw out there, and for someone, if you haven't done a lot of events and you're not Melissa, you should practice them in advance because hybrid is tricky.
Yeah.
You want to figure out what's the right technology. I recently spoke and we had people in the room and it's a smaller room. So like using the owl worked really well because you get 360 video, you can hear each other. However, as the speaker, I also needed to make sure I still logged into Zoom. I was presenting slides there, that the audio worked okay. There wasn't some weird, feedback. So if you're branching into events this year or hybrid, test them first. Make sure you really know what's going to work for your audience. And if you have speakers, what do they need to know so they can be successful? Because the last thing you want to have is a tech snafu. And I know, Melissa does amazing, huge events with platforms and all of this. And so I'm talking about the spectrum. Like if you're on the beginner side or the less tech savvy, but no matter what, you still want to make sure everybody knows what to expect, what they need to do from a technology standpoint. And to your point, Melissa, if you're doing exercises and you're a speaker, how do you have exercises for people in the room? How do you have them for people virtually so that they don't get lost and that they feel included? And how do you make sure that you're sort of keeping your hands around that? I mean, I did a 3.5 hour talk. Wow. And I had to make sure I had events that worked for people in the room, worked for people online, and allowed for discussion between the two.
Yeah.
So the smaller the event, it can be easier, but the bigger you get, you got to think bigger as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And a way to make sure that you don't have those tech issues is having your pre-sessions with your speakers. So you have those, like to call them walkthroughs or tech walkthroughs,
absolutely,
rehearsals, just making sure that your speakers feel comfortable with the platform. If they've never used whatever type of platform, even if it's Zoom, I don't care, still do it because for some reason people, the link is not working. My mic is not working. Things happen in technology. One of our favorite people, turn it off and turn it back on again and it'll work again. So, so make sure that you have your rehearsals and your tech walkthroughs with your speakers. And just like Jen said, she had elements to make people feel engaged. So you could do Kahoot. You could do different type of elements where people are able to vote on questions you may be asking, but you want to test that during the rehearsal as well. Is that easily shareable? Are you having to fumble and, does that throw you off? Do you need a next person that's kind of just your tech person to help run through your stuff if you're a
Yes.
speaker or the organizer does not have enough hands. As a speaker, can you bring someone? And you can ask that. I do know some speakers who have, this is my tech person whenever I speak. He or she is there with me and they're running my
Right,
slides.
right,
They
right.
know my flow, all of that to make me just focus on speaking. So that's definitely something you want to make sure as you're planning your event, you ask your speakers that. Because if you don't have the staff, that's a great way for them to be able to have someone else be able to run their slides for them.
Absolutely. And one thing I would throw out there just to keep in mind is it could be exciting to add things like Slido or Kahoot or whatever, but when you're adding a technical element like Slido, where people have to get out their phone and use their phone, be mindful, because if you actually don't want them to be on their phone before that and after that, how do you remind them to get off their phone and re-engage and refocus? You may want to have those call to actions, because since we haven't been out talking with people for 2 years, guess who we've been talking with a lot? Our phones. And they're even more addicting than before. So it's just something to think through as a speaker or even as someone running an event.
Yeah.
How do you make sure that people are present? And if you are going to do an element like a Slido where they get their phone out, maybe you do it before an intermission or a break. So there's a natural end to it. They step away and you're not going, why are they still on their phone? I want them back to being engaged. So just, again, these are all little things, but they add up to make the experience smoother, better for your attendees, better for you as the person running the event, better for the speakers too.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about your annual events versus having year-long events. So traditionally, your foundations or nonprofits, they usually have one major event, whereas maybe like your big event with, X amount of people that will come,
Mm.
whether it's a fundraiser or a gala. And now what we're seeing is that it's better to have multiple events, and whether your smaller events are in person or virtual. And so a lot of people are doing more virtual events, smaller events that will lead up to your bigger gala. So not saying to throw that
Mm.
away, still keep it, but thinking of having this year round cycle of events is engagement opportunities to reach to your audience, is a really good way to make sure you're still present, your list is warm and nice, and they know who you are because you're always having some type of engagement that people can reach to. What have you seen, Jen, in the area? Have you seen people sort of moving towards these smaller events that lead to a bigger event?
I do think that people are trying to make more thoughtful, intimate settings where, again, you really connect, that you're not having events that, again, people just show up, right? You really want participation. I think there are a few different ways you can think about it too. If you're a national brand, you could do regional events that lead up to a national event.
Mm-hmm.
If you're, let's say, doing more around thought leadership or discussion based topics where you're trying to bring an audience with you, then you might do a series of events that build on the knowledge of your audience. So you bring them with you, and that culminates in a bigger event where it's talking about all of those things and how they come together and interact. I think the most important thing, and sometimes we forget this because we're excited to have events, is to think about your audience, your segments. What do they really need to learn to succeed? What can you provide to them that adds value and is really interesting? Because we don't want to have just any event so we can have an event and get people there, right? If you build it, that does not mean they're going to come. So what is it that your audience truly wants, and how can you get in front of that and really engage them and be of service, be of value to your audience? The other thing I would say, you said this earlier, Melissa, don't really look at events in the past. It's important to challenge your assumptions around what could be an amazing event this year, and go wild and crazy, go small, whatever works, but challenge your assumptions. It doesn't just have to be they show up, you kick it off, blah, blah, blah. It can be more fun. It can be different. It can be outside, on the move. Like, there's all kinds of ways where you can engage people. If you have a big regional or local presence, right, in your area, maybe you move around the city and
Yeah.
you have events around the city because you're getting to explore, getting to know each other, reconnecting. Again, just think through what assumptions might you have about your events and what your audiences want, and then go ask your audiences, what do they really need and what would be beneficial for them to be successful? Because if you deliver that in your event, you're going to have people come, they're going to want to talk about it, they're going to share it, they're going to invite their networks too.
Yeah, and I don't want people to feel like you need to always have a big, large event to feel like your brand has been seen
Successful,
and known.
right?
Yeah.
You've arrived.
Yeah,
Like,
you arrive. It's those smaller events where you have 10 people, 7 people in the room, where you're
yes,
truly able to network, strategize. Oh, I
yes,
know the person you need to meet. Oh, let me get you a meeting with so and so. Those are invaluable. You know, that's just you never know what can grow from those. And it's very meaningful. So people will love to know they don't have to compete with a whole bunch of people in the room.
absolutely,
You know, I
absolutely.
can really talk to everyone in the room and get a great strategy or know who knows who and be able to network business owners and those who represent their company. They love those. So I love the idea of a regional area where you travel to different areas in that region to do a meet and greet, cocktail hour type of feel. But again, making it have being intentional and having that they walk away with something. So not like, oh, not another networking event, but really like, oh, I love these. I get fired up. I get great ideas. I know I'm about to
Absolutely.
meet someone new. So those are always great to do.
And you could have a host at every location,
Yes.
whether it's virtual or in person or both. And you can learn about that business, learn about that leader, whatever it is. Just step back and plan your event thoughtfully, intentionally. And the odds of it being more effective go up tremendously.
Yeah,
But take that time up front to plan and get feedback on it, get ideas, ask people what they think.
absolutely. So our third point is events become an important PR tool. So for traditionally, I know a lot of people are starting to realize this now, but traditionally when you have a marketing and events person, that's technically what their job is. They're making sure the marketing, the PR of the company, and then there's also the event side. But the two has split in probably maybe the last 7-10 years to kind of like you have a PR agency, then you have an
Yes.
events agency, is where they kind of have split off. But that has traditionally how it's always been. However, but it's a great way to be able to do a press release, where this where your PR aspect comes into, to show and tell the world and the media what your event that you're doing for the community, be able to get exposure on your local TV or radio station to kind of spread the word about your event. And so that's a great PR tool that you can use to gain a new audience that may have not known about you, but like the event that you're doing. Whether it's a community service, food giveaway, or
Mhm.
a 5K walk, and or a barkathon, you know, those type of things. I really like that. I have to tell someone about that tomorrow for sure. And you know, really try to get the community involved. And that's again where these events don't have to be huge, but new people coming in, and if they're a dog lover, but they didn't know that your organization does X, Y, and Z, now you have a new person that is interested because you talk to their language, and
Mhm.
you're reaching them because it's a community event. Those community events are great PR ways to get new people into your business, knowing your business and being visible.
I think it's a great point, and there's plenty of ways to do events efficiently and effectively, right? So maybe you have a panel with a community leader, somebody from government, somebody from business.
Mhm.
Um, think about, again, who's your audience? What do they need? If you're doing a book launch, maybe you host a big book launch event, you have a leader in the community, you bring together, of course, the author, you bring together people who maybe contributed to the book. Those are all things that you can build and design for PR that you can invite media to, press to. If you're doing a product launch or you're doing a new location opening, because there are people going back into the office, opening new locations,
Yes.
make it exciting, right? People, I think, hunger for positive news and being a part of celebrating and recognition and progress. So whatever that event is, if it's a chamber event, if it's a business event that you're running, just think through, how can I include people, right? Be inclusive, be creative. Always bring a puppy. I don't know. I feel like that makes good events. You're talking about the barkathon. It was making me think about, but that goes back to knowing your audience, right?
Yeah.
What are these meaningful conversations, some of which should get airtime, right? We've got National Stress Awareness Month next month. We have mental health awareness coming up. And so those are things where you could have a broader discussion. Just make sure that it makes sense for your brand, your business, your event to be the one talking about it.
Yeah. And having a videographer at these events
Yes.
is a must. The budget can't have it. Listen, iPhones can do it too, okay? But you never know from having clips, especially when you're reaching out to media, having clips that you're able to put onto your YouTube, they're able to repurpose that content. And so though the event might have passed, they still may highlight the event post because it's a great community engagement event that reaches to their audience or speak to something that's happening nationally on a broader area. So definitely making sure you have someone to capture. When you just talked about a grand opening, one of my clients did a grand opening of her dance studio, of kind of like a community center studio of all different types of dance. And I told her to reach out to her local government to see if they can get like give a citation to present of like welcome to the community.
Cut the ribbon.
Yes, cut the ribbon. And she did it all. She didn't have any press there, but she had a great videographer that was able to utilize this and do a quick 30-second highlight that was able to then play on post sides. So that's always great. A big thing that's going around, what brings you to the table? People, I am the table, right? So create your own media campaign. You may not have the local news behind you, but you can create it yourself and build up that energy because you never know who can then pick it up on the post side.
Absolutely. And I think never underestimate where you can find talent. You talked about use your iPhone. Absolutely. You can also look and see, are there colleges in the area? They probably have a marketing communications degree program or a video department.
Yep.
Go ask for some students or interns to be brand ambassadors, help them be a part of it. It could go on their resume as part of their sort of class project, class work. But think outside of the box if you are trying to manage costs, trying to manage budget. But students can also be a great way to spread the word. So sometimes things might seem like an obstacle, but convert it into an opportunity. I think that's something that's important right now, is just reframe. If you see something like that where you're like, I don't have a budget for a videographer, that's okay, right?
Yeah.
It's a different bar now for video. There are times where you 100% need high quality video. There are times where you just need good video because you need it to be a part of your marketing strategy later.
Yeah. And when you mention brand ambassadors, a quick bonus is your volunteers. People who are volunteered, those are great ambassadors, brand ambassadors. Whether your event is free or not, they will spread the word. Hey, I'm volunteering at such and such. You should come. It's going to be amazing. Once they feel like they're involved in the project and with the mission of the event and with the organization, those are invaluable. Again, you can't pay for that. I mean, you technically could, but it's better organically. And so you want to make sure that you have your volunteers invested so that they spread the word to get people into the event as well.
And I think it's good to feature your brand ambassadors, feature your volunteers, right? Do spotlights on people who are so passionate that they just want to spread the word because they want to spread the word. But don't forget them, right? Make sure you're saying thank you, you're celebrating them, you're welcoming them, you're highlighting them. Again, that's all opportunity for visibility. That's genuine, authentic, and real.
Absolutely. So we got a couple of questions that some folks have pre-submitted for us. So what are some ways to be unique in your branding at an event? One thing that comes to mind if you have drinks, that there are these wafers that are tasteless. They don't change the taste of the drink. But whether you're doing a mocktail or a real cocktail, you can have your logo on these wafers that are placed right on top of the drink. It's great branding. Some people have even done QR codes. So maybe it's a QR code that goes to the website or a survey or some information you want them to see. And so that's one unique way of branding versus your step and repeats and your retractable banners that can still, be throughout the event. What do you
Absolutely.
think?
And it's funny because the QR codes are kind of making a comeback.
Yeah.
Because I remember years ago thinking, not so much, but now you saw the QR code in the Super Bowl ad that was bouncing around the screen.
Yeah.
I was just chuckling, like, how many people are chasing that QR code?
I know.
Trying to take a picture. I was not. I just was like, I'm going to sit this one out. But it was a very cool campaign. And I think what really helps with QR codes is if people aren't wanting to touch and or they're worried about germs or whatever, QR codes are a great way. They just take a picture and they go. And people are more familiar with that now.
Yeah.
I love the wafer idea. I think from a branding standpoint, think about what's interactive, what's useful. It is still useful to have pens if they're awesome pens. They have to be
Yes.
awesome. They can't be cheap. I mean, sometimes there are cheap, awesome pens, but you got to
Yeah.
find them. Think about what's really useful. Maybe it's doing a raffle for branded items. So people, maybe you have 10 items. So you have a lot of winners. It's not just one or two or
Yeah.
three. So I think about what could be branded that they would actually use or wear, whether it's an umbrella, whether it's a pen, whether it's a phone holder, whether it's, if you have audiences that do a lot of travel, if it's a travel kit that's branded, but it's got really cool stuff.
Yeah.
So think again, what's useful to your audience. If it's the Barkathon, maybe you have, the little lights you can hook off into your dog's leash so you can be seen at night, right?
Yeah.
Just think about what's really useful and on brand and works for your audience. There's so many cool products that are out now. This is from a few years ago, but when I launched my first book, you could get a t-shirt with like the book picture or quote or whatever and squish it up really tiny and bind it in what looked like a book. So when someone opened it, it was a t-shirt. But when you handed it out, it looked just like a small version of your book. Right. So
cool.
again, it just depends on what's fun, what's interactive, what's going to get some ooh, some ah.
Yeah.
And that again is useful. So just something to think about.
Absolutely. Our next question is, what's the best ways to keep our hybrid event guests not feeling that they're not at two different events with your in-person guests, which is a really good point. One good way to do that is having a box experience or a package experience, right? So in the event, whether you're in person or hybrid, we're going to the box and say, okay, now in your box, you're pulling out your pen and your notebook. Okay, I need you guys to Or now in your box, you're referencing things in your box so that both parties can feel like they're at the same event because they know people in person are doing the same thing. They don't feel excluded like I couldn't come in person. So that is definitely one way to make sure your audience feels together during that.
I think that's right. And you mentioned a few earlier, Kahoot, Slido, Mural.io. There's lots of websites where, depending on the event and what you're doing, you can have brainstorming occur virtually and in person. You can have people participate, answer questions. And again, just making it so, just like you said, whatever you're doing in person, replicating that virtually as much as possible. And you can still do breakouts and stuff, and those do have to be separate because you've got virtual and you've got in person.
Yeah.
There can be ways where you mingle, but that gets really complicated.
Mm-hmm.
So, don't overcomplicate it. But don't be afraid to try stuff either.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen with the breakout in the conference room, they already have it preset with the Zoom open. With the guests who could go to breakout room 4 and people are actually coming into the room. and they're communicating and just being able to use the hand feature. You have a moderator that's making it move around the room, so it's possible. It is a little bit more difficult, but if you have it all planned out and mapped out ahead of time, it can be very successful.
And one way to think about that is, how do you create small groups around an identity? So let's say you have a national footprint, but you have attendees from all over. Maybe you have a regional group like the Southeast, and there's some virtual and there's some in person, and they go to the breakout room or the physical conference room, and it's labeled Southeast, or maybe they come up with their own name. So they're bonding and connecting. So a lot of these experiences, we just have to create in advance to make sure that it resonates with people and they feel connected.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I hope a lot of people took notes. I hope you watched the replay and write down notes, because this is a really good, amazing content as you're heading into 2022, planning your events. And the best takeaway I can give you is branding and events, they're a way of life right now. That is how business will be moving forward, and do it in a way that's still traditionally to your brand. You're not going outside of your brand, still to your mission, to your purpose, but don't be afraid to try something new. Get some Gen Zs involved, some millennials involved if you're a baby boomer or not. But mix in the generations, because there are different ways to talk to all different type of generations. But everyone still likes events. So we're all still human. We love human connection. And so making sure they feel involved, but events and business, that's going to be a way of life moving forward.
Absolutely. And I think so beautifully said, Melissa. Your brand is how you make people feel. And events are a great way to make them feel seen, valued, heard, and, as you said, above all, create human connection.
Well, we will see you next month, and we look forward to you. Have a good day.
Have a great week. Bye.